I was a simple ice miner on Europa until the alien artifact I unearthed began whispering the lost secrets of Earth. We call this moon the Mirror, not because it reflects Jupiter above, but because the endless pressurized ice reflects only yourself, your solitude, your insignificance. For 17 cycles, my world was the groan of the tritium drill, the hiss of the recycler in my cramped habitation pod, and the sterile cold that seeped through even the thickest thermal seals. I was Unit 734 of the Jovian ice conglomerate, carving out resources to fuel the outer colonies. My life was measured in megatons of harvested ice and the dwindling days until my contract expired. Earth? Earth was a myth, a bedtime story, a ghost. We were taught it was a paradise we had ruined, a cradle we had abandoned, now silent and dead for centuries. It was a useful tragedy, a story the conglomerate used to keep us focused, to keep us mining. Don't make the same mistakes. Don't look back. Look only to the quota. My sector was Subglacial Trench 9, a particularly deep and stubborn deposit. The drill head was complaining, its vibration changing from a steady rumble to a high-pitched whine. Sensors screamed about anomalous density. We weren't supposed to find anything in the ice but ice, maybe a pocket of superheated vapor. But this was different. I bypassed the auto stop, easing the drill forward manually. The impact was a dull, final thud that shuddered through the entire rig. I suited up and descended into the borehole, my floodlights cutting weak cones into the pressurized dark. There, embedded in ice that hadn't seen light in a million millennia, was a shard of absolute black. It was obsidian, but it absorbed the light from my lamps, drinking it in. It was maybe a meter long, impossibly sharp, and it wasn't cold, it was warm. As my gauntlet touched its surface, it didn't just whisper, it spoke. Not in my ears, but behind my eyes. It was a symphony of voices, a torrent of images, and a single, terrifying truth. We never left. We were silenced. I hauled the artifact back to my pod, a dead weight that pulsed with a living bioluminescent warmth. I told my supervisor the drill had hit a non-volatile ice core and needed a full diagnostic flush, buying myself 12 hours of isolation. I sealed the bulkhead, the heavy thump of the magnetic locks sealing me in with the anomaly. I placed it on my narrow cot. In the sterile white light of my hab pod, it was a void, a hole in reality, and it had stopped whispering. It was waiting. I touched it again. This time there was no symphony. There was a single, piercing note, and the world dissolved. I wasn't in my pod. I was standing under a blue sky. A blue sky, breathing open air that tasted of salt and living things. I saw oceans so vast they dwarfed the subglacial seas of Europa. I saw cities of glass and light that climbed into the clouds. It was the Earth of myth, the paradise. I felt a joy so profound it was painful, a homesickness for a place I had never known. The artifact wasn't just showing me, it was making me remember. Then the note soured. The sky tore open. The vision shifted. I was no longer a spectator. I was a participant. I was on the bridge of a starship, the Aegis, alarms screaming. Before us, Earth was surrounded. It wasn't an invasion of ships. It was a single entity, a shadow that blotted out the stars, a colossal, formless thing that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. It didn't fire weapons, it sang. It sang a song of entropy. I watched, paralyzed, as the song rippled across the planet. The glass cities crumbled to dust, the oceans boiled into toxic steam. But the true horror was what it did to the people. It didn't kill them, it unmade them.
It severed the connections, the memories, the very essence of what they were. It was a silencing, a psychic plague that erased a civilization, leaving the planet intact but hollow. The conglomerate's tragedy was a lie. The story of our ancestors ruining the planet was a cover. Earth wasn't abandoned, it was conquered. The colonies, Europa, Titan, the Belt, were not pioneers, we were survivors. Refugees who had fled just before the song began, our hyperspace lanes collapsing behind us. And the conglomerate, founded by the first panicked refugees, had built its entire existence on one terrible foundation, keeping us quiet, keeping us hidden. They weren't mining ice for fuel. They were mining it to maintain the orbital dampeners, the massive stealth systems that hid the entire Jovian system from the singers. The conglomerate wasn't a corporation, it was a prison warden. The artifact was a remembrance. A data core from the Aegis, the last ship to fall, launched moments before the end. It held the truth. It held the coordinates of the enemy. And it held something else. A new vision bloomed behind my eyes. A face. A woman with eyes the color of the forgotten oceans, standing in a place of stone and green. She was looking right at me, across time. "Find us," she whispered, her voice joining the chorus. "The planet is silent, but not empty. Awaken the vault." A pounding on my bulkhead door shattered the vision. "Unit 734, open this airlock. Your pod is radiating an unauthorized energy signature." It was Voss, my supervisor, but his voice was backed by the metallic clank of conglomerate security armor. They knew. They must have sensors for this. The artifact had betrayed me, or perhaps it had forced my hand. I looked at the obsidian shard now pulsing with a faint, urgent rhythm. I looked at the bulkhead, which was already showing the scoring marks of a plasma torch. My normal world was gone. The solitude of the ice, the simple-minded quota, the dream of retirement on Titan, it was all ash. I was no longer a simple ice miner. I was the keeper of a truth that could either liberate humanity or doom it to a final, echoing silence. "Run," the artifact whispered again. I grabbed it, slinging it into my emergency pack. I didn't head for the door. I ripped open the maintenance panel beneath my cot, plunging into the acrid darkness of the utility tunnels. Behind me, I heard my bulkhead explode inward. I didn't look back. I just ran, following the thrum of the artifact as it guided me toward the surface, toward the vast, dark void where the ore freighters waited. The alarms were system-wide now. A full Sector 4 lockdown. My lockdown. The cold of the utility tunnel was absolute, broken only by the frantic heat pulsing from the artifact in my pack. Behind me, the heavy, rhythmic thump of security mag boots echoed on the grills. They were closing the distance. "Unit 734, stand down!" Voss's voice was distorted by the comm, tinny and desperate. "You are violating conglomerate quarantine. You are risking everything." He didn't know. He couldn't. He was a prisoner, just as I had been, guarding the walls of his own cell. The artifact pulsed, a sudden, sharp spike of data. It wasn't just showing me memories. It was showing me a path, a schematic of the station I had never seen, one that predated the conglomerate. A decommissioned loading bay, a relic from the first desperate landings, disused and dark. I burst through a corroded hatch into a cavern of black ice and dormant machinery, the old mass driver. And there, docked in the ice-crusted bay, was a ship, an ore skiff, barely larger than my hab pod, its hull scarred. It was a ghost. The door behind me sizzled, the bright orange line of plasma torch biting through the metal. I had seconds. I leaped into the skiff, the cockpit thick with the smell of ozone and decay. I slammed my glove on the power conduit. Nothing. The grid was dead, severed. No, I whispered. The artifact grew scorching hot against my back. "Connect us." The whisper was no longer a suggestion. It was a command. I tore the obsidian shard from my pack. It was thrumming, vibrating with an impossible energy. I jammed it, point first, into the skiff's primary data port. The cockpit didn't just light up, it ignited. The dead screens flared to life, not with the conglomerate's sterile orange, but with a brilliant, defiant blue. The ancient symbol of the Aegis burned on the main console. The ship was interfacing, the artifact's infinitely advanced code rewriting the skiff's archaic systems. The hum was no longer in my head, it was in the hull. The bulkhead door behind me exploded inward. 3 black-armored security troopers stood silhouetted against the sparks, rifles raised. "Final warning, 734!" I hit the launch trigger. The mass driver, fed by a power I couldn't comprehend, slammed me back into the pilot's seat. The skiff was hurled like a bullet, shotgunned out of the ice and into the black. I saw the massive, looming shape of Jupiter, and then the stars, the real stars, dense and endless. I was out. The journey was weeks of cold, terrified silence, broken only by the artifact's teachings. It was my navigator, my engine, my teacher. It guided me through dead sensor zones, past conglomerate patrols, on a vector that was nowhere in any official star chart. It was taking me home. The vision of the woman with the ocean eyes returned often. The vault is waiting. We are waiting. We are sleeping. Awaken us. Finally, I saw it. A pale marble, scarred and gray. Earth. It was silent, dead. Just as the history books had lied, just as the artifact had shown. I used the last of the skiff's fuel to navigate to the coordinates, crash landing in a region of high, windswept stone and strange, resilient green. The air was thin, tasting of chemicals and dust, but I could breathe it. I stood before a massive stone entrance, just as she had shown me. I was the first to return. I was the harbinger of the truth. I pressed the warm artifact against the cold stone. With a groan that shook the ground, the great vault door slid open, revealing an abyss of darkness. I stepped inside, and the artifact in my hand pulsed, illuminating the chamber. It was not a cryobay. Thousands of people stood in the gloom, motionless, their clothes tattered like ancient grave shrouds. They were just standing, waiting. The woman with the ocean eyes stepped forward from the crowd. She was identical to the vision, not aged a single day. Her face was not filled with relief, but with a cold, assessing calm. "You have the remembrance," she said. Her voice was flat, empty of the warmth I had treasured. "I'm here," I gasped, holding the artifact out to her. "I'm here to awaken you." She took the shard from my hand. A terrible, knowing smile touched her lips. "Awaken?" she said, her voice echoing in the vast chamber. "No, Minor. We were never asleep." She turned, raising the artifact high. "We were just listening." My blood turned to ice. "What does that mean?" "The conglomerate," she said, her eyes beginning to glow with a faint internal light, "were your wardens. Europa was not your refuge. It was your prison. You were the plague. The silencing, it failed to cleanse you all." She looked at the thousands of silent figures around us. "But now the quarantine is broken. The anomaly has returned home." Her eyes locked on mine, and for the first time I felt the true, terrifying power that had been whispering to me all along. "And you," she said, as the artifact in her hand flared, "have just brought us the key."